y'all, Jamie here with Country Diggers. Today I'm going to go into Chapter 7 of The Pirates of the Florida Coast, Truths, Legends, and Myths by Robert Jacob. Okay, today's is going to be Port Royal, Jamaica, the new Buccaneer Center. And from here on out, it's going to get exciting. Okay? Chapter 7, Port Royal, Jamaica, the new Buccaneer Center. Taken by a large invasion force in 1655, Jamaica emerged as the central English colony in the Caribbean. The English were very quick in establishing their new colony and built a large seaport with 3 well-built forts on a sandbar. Originally, that port was named the Port of Cadway. However, fear of a Spanish counterattack was always present. To defend Jamaica, Captain Christopher Mings of the English Navy organized the Buccaneers from Tortuga into large Buccaneer fleets and went on the offensive, attacking the Spanish throughout the Caribbean. Jamaica soon emerged as the center of all Buccaneer activity in the Caribbean. Now, in May 1655, an English invasion force of 7,000 troops and 30 vessels under the command of Robert Venables and William Penn invaded Jamaica. And, the focus of these fleets were large-scale amphibious operations against Spanish ports. Instead of taking ships at sea, the Buccaneers would land ashore near a major port and take it from the land using infantry tactics. Many of these fleets were well sponsored by the governments they served. Privateers were used in the Caribbean as the regular standing army. The privateers waged large-scale war against shipping and trade, all on the orders of the Crown. Their ships varied greatly in size and composition, but it was not unusual to see large Buccaneer warships of 30 to 40 guns. 1660, King Charles II was restored to the throne in a time period known as the Restoration. In 1660, the English parliamentary government, known as the Commonwealth, was deposed, and the royal family was brought back from exile. King Charles II was restored to the throne in a time period known as the Restoration. In Jamaica, the port of Cadway was renamed Port Royal in honor of the king. Additionally, the political leaders in the Caribbean who had been supporters of the parliamentary government began to be replaced with those who had remained loyal to the king. But Captain Mings didn't care about one's politics and used everyone he could get. 1660, Port Royal emerges as the new Buccaneer haven. Jamaica's main port of Port Royal emerged as the new Buccaneer Center of the Caribbean. In the 1660s, it acquired a reputation of being the Sodom of the New World and the dunghill of the universe. Actually, Port Royal really wasn't such a bad place, according to this author, okay? Most of the negative descriptions of Port Royal seem to have come from people who have a dislike for prostitutes, drinking, and gambling. I rather think of Port Royal as the Las Vegas of the day. This is the author's opinion, okay? By 1660, Port Royal had become the New World's first real boomtown. It was like San Francisco during the 1849 gold rush, or the city of Las Vegas in the late 20th century. It was a place where anybody could earn a fortune in a short time. There were over 6,000 local residents and one of every 5 buildings was a brothel, gambling house, or tavern. Thanks to the Buccaneers, Port Royal had become the most important English port in the Americas, a mercantile center of the English Caribbean, with vast amounts of goods flowing in and out of its harbor as part of an expansive trade network. Port Royal was an ideal place for privateers to sell their captured cargo and to spend their money. Excuse me. The population was extremely diverse. In addition to the English Anglicans, there were accounts of merchants who were Quakers, Papists, Puritans, Presbyterians, and Jews. In fact, the first synagogue built in the New World was in Port Royal. All these diverse groups practiced their religion openly alongside the free-willing buccaneers who frequented the port. Additionally, they all had a friendly, welcome to the Port Royal attitude towards buccaneers. Excuse me. Buccaneer crews consisted mostly of soldiers with a few sailors to handle the ship, but some of the buccaneers were even respected shopkeepers, business owners, and craftsmen themselves. A tradesman could make a year's salary in just 1 month, sailing as a member of the privateer crew. Their appearance would have been a mix of fancy clothing taken from prize vessels, nautical clothing used on board as a matter of practicality, and contemporary military uniforms with the customary military boots. However, leather sandals were also worn. By the late 1660s, buccaneers looked more like land soldiers than sailors. With each raid, the captured clothing contributed greatly to their electric appearance. They all would have been well armed and provisioned when conducting a raid, and also when on shore leave. The fact that they were exceptionally well armed ashore is the first thing many contemporary observers mention. Even though the towns had some sort of law, they didn't have a police force. It was every man for himself when they went ashore. Contemporary accounts mentioned a buccaneer named Roque Brasilino who would scour the streets of Port Royal with a sword, dismembering anyone who crossed his path. If a buccaneer wanted to keep his money, he had to be prepared to fight for it. In the early 1600s, Mings augmented his buccaneer fleet with English captains from Jamaica and Barbados. Among them were John Morris, David Martin, Edward Mansfield, Robert Serrell, and Henry Morgan. However, in 1863, Mings was recalled to England to command a fleet in the war against the Dutch Republic, and Henry Morgan assumed the role as the leader of all buccaneer activity in Port Royal. 1663 to 1670, Henry Morgan was king of the buccaneers. Unquestionably, the most famous privateer of this era, Henry Morgan was the primary leader of the buccaneer fleets sailing for the English. He came to Jamaica in 1655 as a junior officer with the invasion force and quickly rose through the ranks to become a colonel in the militia and admiral of the seas. Morgan was not the typical buccaneer captain, always sailing with letters of marque. He was a close friend of the governor of Jamaica and owned 3 sugar plantations on the island. His uncle, Colonel Edward Morgan, was the lieutenant governor of Jamaica, and Henry married his daughter, who was Henry's first cousin. Operating as captain from 1663 to 1670, Morgan's many raids included Portobello in 1668, Maracaibo in 1669, and Panama in 1670. Among Morgan's captains was Robert Cecil, who would be the first pirate to attack Florida. And that was all of Chapter 7. Chapter 8 will be Captain Robert Cecil, Florida's first pirate. So it gets interesting after this video. All right, so stay tuned for that.